we've been a public company for 6 months. We've achieved a lot. We've gone from 1.6 million pounds worth of Bitcoin to over 200 million pounds worth of Bitcoin in that 6-month period. We believe that probably in the next 5 years, that Bitcoin treasury companies as a sector will become the most valuable sector of companies in the world.
Is there any reason that you can put your finger on of why we've seen a global contraction in MNAVs?
Yeah, so I think, in my opinion, markets are always priced wrong. So they're either too expensive or too cheap, overpriced or underpriced. If you look at our company, for example, so in the current quarter, which we're 1 month into it, we've delivered 1.74 Bitcoin yield, which is the compound Bitcoin. In the previous quarter, we delivered approximately 300%.
Yeah.
Strategy is a good example. This year to date, they're delivering almost 30% Bitcoin yield. Still very, very impressive if you compare that to, like a traditional interest rate or something. Yeah. Now, in my opinion, if you look at us, we're priced at 0.8. So we're priced 20% cheaper approximately than the actual value of our Bitcoin. For a business that's demonstrating that they're improving their Bitcoin yield. So we're probably the only one actually out of the bunch. Strategy's about a 1.3, Metaplanet's about a 1, Capital B's about a 1.5. We're 0.8, fully diluted MNAV. So it's just the way the market's gone. They're all, in my opinion, underpriced now, and perhaps they were a bit overpriced.
I mean, you would say that, right?
Yeah.
But if we take strategy out of it, let's say then Metaplanet, Capital B are trading at 1, which is the equity is purely a representation of the Bitcoin that are currently held. And that's it. You may as well buy Bitcoin, is what the market is saying. However, at 0.8 or 0.82, what's going on there? How can SWC be trading at a discount? Because surely, in theory, I know you would be very hesitant to, but in theory, you just sell all your Bitcoin on the market and you give the shareholders back the cash, and a company would be worth, 0.99, say.
Yeah, so, us selling any of our Bitcoin would be an extreme last result. That would be, pretty much, give up type territory, which, we'll probably never do. But you're right, yeah. It's as simple as that. The reason why you don't do that is that the strategy that we're on for the years to come, you need size. So if we're going to do some of the things that we want to do in the coming years, we need size of balance sheet. So yes, ignoring the fact that I believe Bitcoin's the very best asset in the world and we're just priced wrong, then you wouldn't look to reduce the size of your balance sheet. Because then you're impeding on your future strategy goals. And
your fundamental review remains that you would much rather be in Bitcoin than you would in fiat. So your share price is in fiat currency.
Yeah, 100%. So Bitcoin, and one of the reasons why I think you've seen this compression of the global MNAVs is that Bitcoin has disappointed too many new people this year. People that don't understand it, people that have literally just got into it, or Bitcoin treasury companies. Yeah. So if you look at Bitcoin year to date, it's probably showing a gain of something like 5%. We believe that Bitcoin will probably do approximately 30% every year. If you look at the last couple of years, there's been one bad year, most years over 100%. So this year, Bitcoin hasn't delivered, taking this year purely
it's taking a breath.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's bizarre to see the movement in gold relative to Bitcoin. So it's been the more traditional safe haven, but fiat currency has definitely depreciated. So there's still that running theme.
Well, there's a good link. If you look at the last run up in gold, and then you look at when that dipped, and then you look at what Bitcoin did next, that's a good one for your viewers to have a look at on the charts. That was incredible. Bitcoin ripped once gold started to dip.
When you're trading at below 1 MNAV, and we know we've spoken about this morning already, there seems to be some kind of strain in financing in crypto world at the moment.
Yes.
When that happens, you have to sell what you can sell, right? So if there's a investor that SWC is their liquid thing, but it does seem to be a daily event that somebody's there selling. Now, of course, I worried at one point it was the ATM.
Yeah.
But you've said you'll be disciplined about the ATM. Where does that sit? What are you judging on MNAV, or how are you judging where to operate it?
Well, so our partner operates the ATM, and to date, I've been delighted with how they've done it. They've not put a foot wrong, as far as I'm concerned.
Good.
And I would imagine what they would do is they would sell at a premium above a 1 MNAV.
Okay.
Because it wouldn't make any sense to sell the shares below 1. That would be terrible for the shareholders. So you just wouldn't do it. But then you wouldn't sell them bang on a 1 either. because you've got a tiny amount of commission that goes to them. You've got a tiny amount of costs when you buy Bitcoin. You've got the volatility in between when you sell the shares and when you buy the Bitcoin. So you would probably, if you were really keen on generating money through the ATM, you'd probably do it at 5%. You would
at least 105.
Like 10% would probably be more sensible, and then obviously the higher the better. If you look at the most recent update that we did, where there was a tiny amount, 0.3 million, raised, I think that was something like 68p,
60,
which is considerably above the share price at the time. So if we look back at the ATM, since it started, I think it's fairly evident that it's been a very beneficial thing for the company. Approximately 25% of our capitals come from the ATM.
Wow, is it as much as 25%? That's incredible.
Yeah.
So it really, because it is perplexing to people. I mean, we look at it now and we're trading at 43 to 45 pence, and we think the MNAV is roughly where then?
Just below 60, I'd say. It's on the analytics page on our website. From memory, maybe 57, 58.
So do you have any feel who's liquidating below that sort of 60p then?
No, so we look at all the different stats, and we speak to market makers both in the UK and in the US to try and find out if there's any particular pockets.
Yeah.
And sometimes we find out that there might be a big seller, from the UK or from the US, for example. The two biggest holders, which is the UTXO fund, and myself and my wife clearly neither of those have sold anything.
Yeah.
And that equates to about 25% of the equity. One thing that we believe is that the Bitcoin Treasury companies as a proper sector is a new sector as of this year, even though you've got strategy that's been around for over 5 years. And that view is shared by Saylor as well, in the sense that this is a new sector. So I think one of the explanations for it is that there were a lot of people that bought the momentum that probably aren't so passionate about the model.
Absolutely.
Don't see the model as being a long-term thing. We believe that probably in the next 5 years, that Bitcoin Treasury companies as a sector will become the most valuable sector of companies in the world. So clearly that's a view that's not shared by everyone at the moment. So it's probably something along those lines.
And we had a question: why should anybody, any company, trade at above the amount of Bitcoin? What can you do that warrants a 1.5 or a 2 times or 3 times MNAV?
Well, if you look at the Bitcoin yield that companies such as ourselves generate, even if it's only a few percent a quarter, that justifies above 1 MNAV, because effectively that Bitcoin yield, the increase in the Bitcoin per share, is increasing the amount of Bitcoin on a look-through analysis. So
and that's what people call the flywheel.
Yeah. So the Bitcoin yield is the compounding of the Bitcoin, which justifies the model.
Yeah.
The flywheel is all of those different capital tools that you can use. So if you look at the UK Bitcoin Treasury companies, we are the only one that's actually been able to demonstrate that the model can work.
Yeah.
And that model is equity, ATM, smart to convert, potentially straightforward debt, potentially preference shares, potentially option strategies. The flywheel is everything that allows you to create the Bitcoin yield.
But it's chicken and egg, isn't it? Because you need a higher MNAV to warrant a higher MNAV.
Not really. You need a positive Bitcoin yield to convince people that you have a higher MNAV. If you have a higher MNAV, you can sell more equity. Selling equity is way better than selling anything else. But because there are strategies that you can use when you are on a lower MNAV, you can generate Bitcoin yield to a degree. Right. But if you've got a much, much, much higher MNAV, you can sell a lot more equity, and it's far more accretive than the other strategies without the risk that debt entails.
Yeah. And the great thing is you acted so quickly. You've got that big asset pile. Is there optionality around using the assets? Yeah,
of course you can. So we've explored a lot of those, and currently I'm not happy with the small amount of additional risk that you'll generate, to probably get, say, between a 4 and a 6% yield annually. Okay. But in simple terms, ignoring the risk part of it, you can effectively loan your Bitcoin, and you can get a 4 to 6% yield.
Okay, so that's about 10 million a year.
Yeah, approximately.
So, but that 10 million, if we put that on 10 times earnings, is 100 million.
Yeah.
So you end up trading at 1.5 times MNAV, and it kind of all works.
Yeah, it's just the risk element, but there is one way that we've found to do it, which has got almost no counterparty risk.
Okay.
So we're certainly seriously considering it. But as we're talking right now, we haven't done that. At some point, that will be something we can do. The other thing that we and we've been honest about this since the start, that we are exploring, but we will only do it for the right opportunity, is the acquisition elements against the core business, where we can pull in basically low risk businesses that are within the area of expertise that I've got, i.e. the web design and marketing sector. And then we can use that to substantiate that. But I've got to stress that we would only do those things, if they're the right deals. And part of the right deal is the right price to pay for something that, because, if we're going to do a deal such as that, and we're effectively doing it with our equity, if we believe that our equity is undervalued at the moment, the deal's got to be even better to justify it.
That's the problem.
Because our equity is our currency.
Yeah, because it's a very normal thing for CFOs to have to choose between more equity or more debt.
Yeah.
And I think any CFO that, when you're trading at a discount to your very liquid assets, debt becomes a very real and potential option. But yeah, we can't forget that you are a company outside of the Bitcoin holdings.
Yeah.
And how is the web business going?
Yeah, so we're starting to develop our profile and it to be better. We've got a big rebrand underway at the moment. We're keeping the name. Spoiler before anyone sort of asks about that one. And we're very proud of the name. But we believe that we've got a really good brand that will work for all of the different things that we do as a business, that hopefully in the next, I don't know, maybe as soon as the next month, probably the next 2 months, we'll be able to unveil.
Right.
So that's been going for a couple of weeks now. But that just takes time, like everything else. I think the most, or if I could leave one message with everyone, is, we've been a public company for 6 months. We've achieved a lot. We've gone from 1.6 million pounds worth of Bitcoin to over 200 million pounds worth of Bitcoin in that 6-month period.
Yeah.
We believe that we've got everything right as a company for the future in terms of our strategy. We're doing all the right things, many of which we're not allowed to talk about at the moment. And, we believe that within another 6, 12, 18 months, we'll be in a vastly different position to where we are today. So it's very difficult to ignore the sort of the hours and the days, but it's better to focus on the weeks and the months to look at the things that we've achieved. We haven't got everything perfect in terms of our decisions, but we've done most of it pretty well. And we're hoping that we can continue that.